Hello. Hopefully everyone's doing well. Sorry we're starting a little late today. But yeah, quite a few people did not show up on time, but that's okay. We'll try to make sure we start promptly at, 9. I believe it's 9 a.m. for you guys. Correct me if I'm wrong. But we'll try to be in the stream when it starts. There's still only 8 of you in here is what it looks like. I think there's 30 something people in the class, so make sure you're here. Hello. Good to see everybody. So, the goal for today is we are going to be working on Illustrator, and we're going to be working on our design number 5 assignment. So I do have some slides I want to go through with you talking about branding and readability and some things like that. And then we'll jump into the assignment and I'll do some demo on Illustrator. So, and I'll try to run through the assignment as best I can. So, I'm not sure why people aren't showing up, but if you are friends with people in the class, tell them that, hey, we need to be in the stream, right? I know the video goes up on YouTube after the fact, so it's kind of hard to be motivated to be here early in the morning, right? But you can't ask me your questions if you're not here. So anyways, we'll stop talking about that now, but if it becomes a problem, I'll make, attendance worth more or something. But anyways, let's jump into our slides for the day. Hopefully you all had a good spring break. Played some video games, spent time with friends and family. We're going to jump in here. Let's go to our slides. So let's swap this. Okay, awesome. So good. Glad to hear it. So let's start with this. We're going to talk about readability, visual hierarchy, and branding today. Okay. Hello. When talking about these things, let me hide my face for a little bit here. I'm going to jump back. Let me hide myself for a minute. Or just get myself out of the way. So, readability, visual hierarchy, and branding, right? When we're talking about readability, I'm really in the way here. Hopefully this is good. Okay, so with readability, we have a definition that we kind of default to when you hear people talking about it, right? And that definition is the arrangement of fonts and words in order to make written content flow in a simple, easy to read manner. Now, that's when we're talking about writing, right? Readability pertains to a lot of different things. When we're talking about readability in the art sense, right, we want to make sure that we are coming across and being understood when we're talking about readability, right? Because all your professors are going to talk to you about it, especially in art. Hey, is that easy to read? Is that readable to your audience? So I'm going to give you kind of an updated definition here that may make a little bit more sense. So my updated definition for you all is the arrangement of design elements in order to make the final product's content flow in a simple and easy to read manner, right? For this week, we're working on a logo assignment, right? But anyways, furthermore, all the elements in this design should be visually distinguishable from one another, right? Here are some really bad really bad examples of readability, right? You can see what they were doing here with these, logos. You can kind of see what they were trying to do with the, architecture and the building. But this ends up just looking provocative and not what they were trying to go for here. This looks bad, right? Same thing here. You know, you could see what they were trying to do, the K with the kind of funky shape, but this ends up just looking bad too, right? So with a little bit of an adjustment, right? This logo is a lot more readable, looks a lot nicer, makes a lot more sense. And so does this one, right? It's the same idea. You have this sort of rising sun idea with this, you know, architecture that's happening here. This makes a lot more sense, right? This was close, but no cigar, right? Not close enough. Just ends up looking awkward. So, oh, simple cinema. I'll fix it. If it's showing that, we'll fix it. It should be a Illustrator assignment. So I'll fix it. Don't worry about it. Yeah. So talking about readability, we're going to continue with readability a little bit more here. So readability doesn't only pertain to logos, right? But it applies to sort of every aspect of design when we're working in this field of art for games, right? The readability pertains to characters and heads-up displays. When we're talking about characters, your initial silhouette is a huge deal, right? That's why you do these thumbnails of characters, to try to work out whether or not the silhouette makes sense and is readable, right? Because if it's bad here, it's only going to have a waterfall effect downfield, right? It's only going to get worse once you start applying more and more detail and texture. If it's not readable in the silhouette, it's not going to be readable at any point. So this is important. Same thing with HUDs. Keeping things nice and clean and concise is a huge deal. When you have games that have really crowded heads-up displays, it makes it stressful and not fun to play. Metroid Prime does a really good job of keeping it clean and simple, right? You know what you're looking at. So when we're talking about HUDs, right, or heads-up displays in games, it's a big thing. Illustrator is used a lot for heads-up displays. In fact, this assignment was almost going to be a heads-up display assignment, but we pivoted last minute to be a logo assignment, which is fine. But a good HUD, the primary objective of this HUD is to provide the user with information quickly and efficiently, right? They need to be playing and be able to look up and determine what they're looking at, right? Because games are fast-paced. Not all, but most of the time when you're looking for that information, you need it right now. You don't want to have to dive 8 menus deep to figure out what your health is, right? Or how much energy you have, okay? So your eyes should be drawn to that information, and it should be easily accessible and readable. So here's some great examples of heads-up displays that I've played and seen over the years of playing games. I've played a lot of video games in my life, and I've built heads-up displays for games before, and it's tough. But these are some of the good ones. Now, I think Assassin's Creed is the sort of conventional way that everybody goes about doing it. Let's give you a health bar. Let's give you a map of your buttons and what each button does. Let's give you your weapon panel and some other information in this bottom corner, and we'll give you a little mini map somewhere in one of the corners. It's safe, it's effective, and it works. I don't find it to be very inspiring, but it does work, right? Now, when you could jump into like Persona or this is Dead Space, right? The main character, all of his information is displayed on his backpack here. He has his energy and his health on his backpack. So you can always be focused on your character. And a lot of times in Dead Space, it's really dark, right? So you've got to be able to see what's happening to your character and understand the status of that character, right? Our HUDs and let me see if I can read that. HUD and UI the same. Yeah, exactly. Heads up display or user interface, same thing. Now user interface can be a lot of different things, and heads-up displays can be a lot of different things too. Yeah, they're interchangeable. Same thing. So the next one, I think personas is probably the most flashy. And it does a really good job of showing you in a fun and interesting way what all of your things do on your controller, right? It also gives you some fun, interesting information. The way they display characters is unique and cool, right? Each thing sort of feels like a collage and, you know, this sort of explosion of color in these radial menus. They do a really good job. I think my favorite one out of these three, because it's the most innovative to me, was displaying your character's health and energy on the character itself. Turning the character into the UI was pretty cool. Or heads-up display. UI, to me, when you say UI, I start thinking of all the menus in the game. Heads-up display is what's on the screen while you're playing to me, right? So, anyways, those are some good examples. Now, I want to jump into visual hierarchy because you're going to be building some logos today and this week. And it makes sense to understand a little bit about graphic design when we get into this stuff. So I've got some principles of graphic design that I think are important. Visual hierarchy being one of them, right?
At healthcare.gov,
so
4 out of 5
we've got
customers
some
can
ads
find a quality plan for
playing.
$10 or less
Love
per
it.
month with financial help. Enroll in a
Because I'm
plan
on
today
a
at healthcare.gov.
enroll healthcare.gov today. It's because I'm on a live channel for music. Okay, so visual hierarchy is a principle of design I talked a lot about in graphic design, and you're doing some graphic design today. But what happens here is visual hierarchy is what is used to rank design elements and influence the order in which you want your viewers to view them, right? You want the users to see something in a specific order. With this image on the left, everything is the same size and not important, right? Now, just by changing a little bit of the scale and using some of this visual hierarchy, the image on the right-hand side is a lot more interesting, right? The first thing that catches your eye is the big whale, right? Well, and then you go, wow, that thing's big. Oh yeah, there's a person there too. Okay, well, yeah, and then they're underwater. You can see these bubbles, right? So it sort of makes your eye travel and flow across the screen in a much better way, okay? So you're using principles with scale and contrast to establish each element in its rightful place, right? So with that being said, let's talk about scale a little bit, okay? So we're using scale to our advantage, okay? Scale is a great tool that you have in design to help you emphasize things, right? If you want somebody to see something, make it big, right? It's easy to do, and it's easy to see. It's the reason why so many games now use this in their design. If you look up the 3 latest video games that have released in the last year, and you look at the cover art of those games, most of them are going to be doing this. The big, huge scale of text on their screen. I've seen so many games do this lately, and lots of games doing this contrasty stuff with the black and then the red. Lots of games doing it. Spider-Man, Call of Duty. I saw a couple other ones too that have done it too. Armored Core, like just a bunch of different games that have done that recently. Okay. It's easy to do and it's effective, and people look at it and go, ooh, on the shelf, and they pick it up, right? So scale is important. Now, I'm not saying that everything that you do in this design and your logo needs to have a big slap of text across it. That's not it, but it can be effective in some ways. Okay. The next thing that you can think about too is perspective. Always giving something a little bit of depth can really change the design overall, right? When something has a little bit of depth, it really creates a feeling of being in the space and really helps deliver an interaction with your product that people can relate to a little bit more, right? So you can create illusions of depth from a few inches to several miles. But we can see here on the left-hand side, this image here before any sort of depth or perspective was added to this is a relatively cluttered image. Now we changed the perspective and went top down, so obviously we're going to gain a lot more real estate with this, but also there's that element of depth that just makes you feel like you are in this character space a little bit more, right? You can see what's happening on his desk. Here, things look like a jumbled mess, but here you can actively see what he's doing and what's happening here. It just makes this a lot more interactive. So it's commanding a little bit more attention. Everything here is kind of the same size and there's not really anywhere to start. But here you see the big desk. Oh, and then your eye kind of travels around and looks at all the knickknacks and pictures and things, and then you kind of get a full overview of the entire design. So it looks good. The GameCube logo would be drastically more boring if it was not in this depth, right? This is what makes it cool, is that it's a 3D cube. If it were just a flat G that looked like a box, it would not be very cool. So the next thing I want to talk about here is color and contrast too. So you have scale. The next thing that you can use in your tool bag is color, right? So just like size, bright hues can usually draw greater attention, more than duller colors do, right? For example, with this next sentence, instantly the first word that's going to stand out is the word stand. It's in green. Your brain is going to automatically look at that as the first thing to look at. No matter what you do, you're not gonna be able to help it. It stands out. It's different from the other things here, right? So if a single word in a sentence is highlighted with a brighter color, it's going to stand out, right? It just does. There's nothing, it works well and it's effective. Okay. So another example here, right? Dramatically contrasting colors can emphasize specific elements of a design more than a gentle scale will, right? Right here, you've got Spider-Man in big, bold white letters across a black background with a red, bold Miles Morales, right? You know what you're looking at. And then the character kind of blends into the background, but then they have the big fist that's all powered up. And it just takes more of your, attention, right? So just think about that as you're looking through the assignment today. What am I going to do to make some emphasis on some pieces of my design here, right? So here's some bad examples, right? Designs that have too many contrasting colors can lead to really unorganized and incohesive products. The same can be said for using color schemes that don't adhere to principles of color theory too, right? Like, this is a web page that you land on and this is horrible, right? This hurts your eyes. There's no color theory. There's nothing being done to make this appealing in any single way. This is really bad. The more you look at it, the worse it gets. Now, using contrasting color is also effective too, right? Color choice and contrast can really affect and really change your audience's ability to discern the background of your design from the foreground, right? So it's why we spent time discussing color and now perspective too, right? Like we talked about perspective in the last lecture. Now we're getting into color a little bit more, and we'll talk more about color too in the coming weeks. So this, these high contrasting colors, this kind of is not as effective as something like this, right? This hurts. These are too contrasty and together, where this is a very high contrast orange placed on a duller background. It just pops a little bit more. It makes more sense. So, I have a few more thoughts on visual hierarchy, right? But I don't have enough time to go through them all. It's a really good article. So I have posted a link. I will link these slides in the Discord for you to go through. If you want to click the article, it's a really good one. It teaches you a lot about graphic design. So if you're interested in that stuff, read through this. It's a really great article. So figure I decided. I did grab some of this information from that article. So if you want to read more into it, click that link. And I'll post those slides for you too. So the next thing I want to talk about here is branding. Okay. So branding, because you're building logos today, one of the logos that you're going to do either represents a game. The other one is going to represent yourself in some way. So it's either talking about personal branding or branding in general. We're going to just kind of dive into this a little bit, right? So we're talking about branding, right? A brand is a set of features that distinguish one organization from another, right? When you were a kid, I don't know what type of products you have where you guys are at. You know, it's probably a little different. Maybe you have some of the similar products, right? Here in the US, Cocoa Puffs is a really popular cereal. I don't know if it's popular where you're at, but there's also off brands that you can buy at, you know, your local supermarket that are similar but not as good, right? A lot cheaper too. But anyways, a brand usually comprises of a name, a tagline, a logo, or a symbol, something that separates it from somebody else, right? It's the overall experience you have when you interact with a business or a product. Okay. I'm going to change this definition a little bit though, because we're not designing cereal boxes today. We're designing logos for games or for yourself. So let's change this up a little bit. Our new sort of tagline here is a brand or a feature or set of features that distinguish one game from another, right? Or game company from another. A brand is typically comprised of name, tagline, logo, symbol, design, brand voice, and more, right? It also refers to the overall experience a customer undergoes when interacting with a game or your end product, right? Or a game company specifically, right? Could be all those things. So, 3 ways that branding affects games that you have been shown your entire life without possibly noticing, right? You may have never noticed this, or maybe you did. But we're going to go through a couple of them here. Big ways branding works. So, a big part of branding is using mascots, okay? These mascots, you may not know all of them, but you probably know at least one of them. I can guarantee you probably know at least 2 of them, and maybe you know all 4 of them, right? These mascots were used from the dawn of each of these companies, you know, beginnings, right? Sonic, not so much, but Sonic was made to compete with Mario, this guy here, because Nintendo was tearing it up with using Mario as their mascot, right? It's a really easy way to deliver merch. We'll talk about this thing in a second, but your brand becomes this character and you can back everything, and this character becomes the thing that drives your product. Microsoft really tried to do that with Master Chief and push it. PlayStation and Sony tried to do that with Jak and Daxter. Don't know how successful that was. And Sega did it with Sonic. Sonic and Mario are probably the 2 most successful ones. Master Chief probably being 3rd. But you've all seen these your entire life. So the pros and cons of using a mascot as your brand, right, is it's the most versatile, right? It's really easy to license all manner of products, right? You have the ability to make socks and plates and underwear and backpacks and pencil cases, and everything under the sun that has Mario's face on it is going to sell because people love Mario. Oh, and that means, oh, I love Mario. I need to check out the next thing that the people that made Mario are making, right? It's instant. It's easy for them to go, okay, yeah. Oh, Nintendo makes Mario. Okay. I'm going to look at everything that Nintendo makes because I love Mario, right? Now, the cons to that are that it can be limited and like heavy lifting is done by that mascot, right? While the games kind of become secondary, right? People know who Sonic is, but name the last Sonic game or the last 5 Sonic games that have come out, right? I couldn't tell you the names of them. I don't know. Now, I could tell you probably the last 5 Mario games that came out because, you know, there's a difference there, right? Sonic is where the heavy lifting is really being done by some people. Love Sonic, but the games haven't been all that great, and so that has suffered. Mario, people love Mario, and the games hold up. So, you know, there's that level of success there. Now, the next thing here that happens is when games become mega franchises or brands become mega franchises, where the franchise itself becomes your brand, right? Grand Theft Auto is Rockstar's brand, right? Most of their games sort of fall into this idea of being a Grand Theft Auto type of game, right? EA really struggled with Battlefield. Battlefield became EA's brand and it didn't go well for them. Square Enix's brand is Final Fantasy through and through. They make games like Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts, other offshoots, right? Their brand is Final Fantasy. You look at Square Enix and you know Final Fantasy, okay? Gears of War was another mega franchise. That studio didn't make any other games, I don't think, right? And then Call of Duty has multiple studios and teams working on Call of Duty, right? You probably couldn't name all of the companies that work and make Call of Duty, right? You've got Ravensoft, you've got Sledgehammer and Infinity Ward and all these different companies that make Call of Duty, right? But people just know Call of Duty. The average person doesn't know, oh, I know that Sledgehammer made this one, or I know that Infinity Ward made this one. Most of the people just go, oh yeah, Call of Duty. Call of Duty makes Call of Duty. So anyways, or Activision, right? But that being said, that kind of plays into the next thing. But anyways, what happens with mega franchises is they have huge impacts on pop culture. Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto, all of these games have huge impacts on pop culture. People know what to expect when they see something from that franchise, okay? Sequels are easier to design and they just pump cash, right? They just make tons of cash. Now, the problem with that is it's hard to keep up the quality and the consistency of that, right? Call of Duty has had its up and downs. I think Grand Theft Auto has probably had its up and downs too, right? With people being kind of, disappointed with what's happening with the franchise or how long it takes to put out games, whatever. Once the franchise has complete control, you're locked in, right? It's hard to change that. It's hard to say, okay, the next Call of Duty game is going to be a third-person, turn-based role-playing game. That's not going to happen, right? You can't do that. Call of Duty is a first-person shooter. You can't change the design of Call of Duty. Even Call of Duty knows they can't change it because they always try to and then change it back to what it was before. Because it's hard to do, right? You're kind of locked in. The last one here to talk about, I think, is when your studio becomes your brand. This is the one that all game companies want to achieve, right? Everybody wants to be the next Blizzard or the next FromSoft or the next Valve, right? Maybe not Blizzard so much. They've gone through some hot water as of late. But Valve and FromSoft, companies like Devolver Digital, they pump out tons of games, right? These companies have huge names, and when they slap their name on a game, people will buy it, right? When anything Valve puts out, people are going to buy. From Software is the same way. Elden Ring really launched From Software into the stratosphere, right? They were already great with the Dark Souls series and Bloodborne, but Elden Ring did something that has not been done in a long time. It created a studio that is now a brand. It's a household name. People know what Elden Ring is, and they know that From Software made it, right? So this is the one that everyone wants to achieve. Now, there's pros to this, okay? Pros to this is it's the most rewarding, and consumer groups are actively interested in your success. Games sell themselves, right? You slap your name on the box, people are going to buy it. Now, the cons to this, you can see with what's happened to Blizzard over the last couple of years, right? Blizzard went through some hot water with some bad PR and bad stuff that was happening at the studio. And people felt as if they had been betrayed by this, betrayed by this company. And you lose the heart of your consumer, and people left in droves. WoW subscriptions went down. People stopped playing Overwatch. People stopped doing all the stuff that Blizzard needed, and Blizzard was in a lot of trouble. So, companies come in and pick them up. Microsoft buys Activision. buys Blizzard, right? They know they're in trouble. Now they're working on repairing their image, but they did the unspeakable. They destroyed their studio branding, and it's oftentimes unrecoverable. We'll see. Blizzard's hired some new people. They've tried their best, and we'll see what happens there. But other companies, you know, From Software is everyone's darling right now. They love them. They can't put out a bad game, right? And they're really good people from what it seems like over there who love making video games. So people will continue to buy their stuff. I think with that being said, that might be all I have. Yeah. So remember that building a brand takes time and effort. Now, you are not a mega franchise. You are not a mascot, but I am asking to make a mascot of yourself today in one of the options of the assignment. If we look at it, I'll show you. So let's look at the assignment. Design number 5. Okay. Design number 5 has a couple options for you to look at here. Design number 5 has option 1. Okay. Option 1 is going to be creating a logo for a game. You are restricted to these 2 images. So you're going to build a logo for one of these 2 images. This is either this game or this game you will build a logo for, right? That logo can be text with some images, with some cool graphics. You know, however you want to do that. I gave you some examples of recent logos that have been released. You are in control here, using the design language and the elements in these scenes to help encourage and inspire the logo is what I'm looking for, right? Now, option 2, which is the one I think I'm going to demo today because it's a little quicker and I can go through this maybe a little bit faster with you all. Option 2 is going to be designing your own Jolly Roger, which is really popular in One Piece. I'm a huge One Piece fan. If you can see behind me, I have all the volumes of the manga of One Piece behind me on this shelf. I love it. It's great. And something that I love in it is all the cool designs for all these characters, right? These Jolly Rogers become a brand for that character, right? It's really easy. It's a characterization and branding for that pirate, right? I really like it. It's things that you can recognize from these characters. Luffy has his hat, Zoro has his swords, right? All these characters have something unique that makes them who they are. So you are going to design this for yourself. What are some things you like? What are some of your features? Or maybe you do your hair in a really cool way every day, or maybe something that people recognize you by, right? So that is what you're going to take a look at. And I'm going to demo this today for you all. I'll build my own Jolly Roger. And I'll put some things in there that I think are cool that I enjoy. So we'll go through this together. But those are your 2 different options. So you either build one of these for yourself or build a game logo. Either one is fine with me, right? And you're going to do it in Illustrator. So we're going to build these in Illustrator. Okay. Now Illustrator, we're going to jump into here. Illustrator is a lot different from Photoshop. Okay. Illustrator is a vector-based program. Photoshop is a raster-based program. Vector-based means it draws mathematical lines between points to create your images, right? Raster uses pixels, okay? So oftentimes in Illustrator, you can make images that are a lot cleaner, right? You can see, for example, I've got, you know, a little caricature of myself here, which we can open up. This might be one of your assignments here, for you to build something like this in one of your labs. But you know, these images don't lose quality when you zoom in, right? Now, if I zoomed in on something like this in Photoshop, it would be really pixelated, right? But these images, you know, kind of stay like this. So Illustrator is based off of vectors, which means we have a lot more of an opportunity to create clean and concise images, which I really enjoy. Illustrator has become one of my favorite programs over the last couple years. I use it almost daily because I design t-shirts. I design things for different companies. I've put out logos for companies. So it's been really fun. But there are some tools inside of Illustrator that make it unique and interesting to use. So we're going to start from the beginning here, and I'm going to kind of walk you through Illustrator in a nutshell, give you some of the tools that I think are essential for this week's assignment, and then we'll do some demo. Okay. So Illustrator is a little different. When you hit new file here, it's similar to Photoshop, but you're going to be greeted with a lot more options. Things are going to say, okay, here's a print, here's something for video, here's something for a TV or for whatever. Don't worry about that so much. It's not a huge deal. What I usually do is I set a 1000 by 1000 point square inside of Illustrator, and I just start drawing, right? Because I can always export out whatever size, or I can rescale stuff. It really doesn't matter at this point. But I want to give myself a big enough square that I can get in there and start designing. If you want it to be of a rectangle, make this point a little bit bigger than this point. Now, when we start exporting artboards and things, that gets a little bit more complicated. But for right now, what we're doing, where we're just trying to learn the software, it's totally fine to do something like this. So I'm going to go ahead and hit create. 1000 points by 1000 points. We'll just hit create. All these other things are fine. RGB color or RGB is fine. Your raster effects, when we get into that, I just keep this on high. And then I'm going to hit create. Okay. And that's going to drop us into this white square, right? I'm going to move myself out of the panel here. But we have, you know, a similar layout to what we see in Photoshop, right? Very similar. Now, there are some things that happen inside of here that function a lot different than Photoshop. Mainly, the main tool inside of Illustrator is drawing things with this pen tool, right? And you can see it's not me drawing a line like I would in Photoshop, right? Typically, when you're in Photoshop, you click on your brush tool and you do something like this. Now, you can do that in Illustrator. This is not the typical way you go about doing things. You can create images this way and create shapes this way, and it's fine. But Illustrator is a shape-based design program when it comes down to it. You want to build things out of shapes and objects, right? So the pen tool is designed for you to click points and then close objects, right? And then you can move objects around, okay? The pen tool is something that you have to get a little bit used to, but we'll go through that in a minute. So on the left-hand side, let's run through the UI a little bit. On the left-hand side, it's similar to Photoshop. You got all your tools. We'll go through a couple of them today, okay? At the top, you have some more option menus. One that I think is important is to go to Edit, and then Preferences, and then General, and then Zoom with mouse wheel, okay? Yeah, I typically use a mouse inside of Illustrator. There are some times when I start using the brush where I will go through and start using my pen, but a lot of the times I'm using my mouse in Illustrator. Unless I'm actually hand painting something where I need to be able to paint, you can use either one. It's built to do either. Now, I always have Zoom with mouse wheel turned on, okay? Because I like to be able to zoom. The zoom tool is actually really good in Illustrator. It's pretty garbage in Photoshop, but it works well inside of Illustrator. Middle mouse to drag around, and then zoom with scroll wheel. So it works pretty well. You can actually left click and drag too with that. So left clicking and dragging allows you to zoom in and out while you're on the zoom tool or the magnifier tool here. Middle mouse button to pan, left click to zoom. That works pretty well. I just am so used to being able to zoom with my scroll wheel in every single program that I need it to be turned on. So the zoom gives you a lot more precision. You can dial it in a lot better. The zoom is kind of a step zoom. This lets you be a little more precise. Okay. Anyways, so the top has got a plethora of menus like every other Adobe software. You've got tons of different things up here. We may get into a little bit, but probably not today. The right-hand side, there are some important things to look at over here. The most important being the properties menu. This is where so many different options live when we're going through and clicking on different tools. We want to be able to look at this properties window, Okay. Now the layers window functions the same way that Photoshop's does. You can turn off and on layers. It doesn't have the same level of customization that Photoshop does, but it does allow you to stack layers and create layers, turn layers off, put opacities on layers, lock layers, do all that kind of good stuff. Okay. So we can use that layer panel to our advantage, just like in Photoshop. Now there is a library. I don't ever use this. You can search up different objects and different things for Illustrator. I never use it. There is a new generative AI feature inside of Illustrator. The success is varied. I have not had great success with it. It can work. It can work. I don't know. It can be okay. I would ask you to not use the AI for the assignment and actually do this yourself. Okay. See, that's the experience I've had in a lot of different cases. Crashes my Illustrator. Sometimes it works great. Sometimes it just straight up crashes Illustrator. So, we'll jump back in. Okay, cool. So, we talked about this a little bit. There are some really unique and cool things that we want to understand over here. You do have in the default view, you can change on the top ribbon here. There's a little window pane that looks like this, that says switch workspace. Now, I believe it's automatically set to essentials. You can click through this a little bit and have it change some things for you here. I don't care either way, however you want to end up using this. The Essentials Classic does turn on a few more features here. You get your color pane, you get color grids, you get swatches, you get brushes, you get more things, you get line types, you get all kinds of crazy stuff. The Essentials for me is great. I usually just want the align tool. I want a couple other ones. The appearance tab is important to me because this shows effects and things that have been placed on an object. So it just depends. With that being said, the properties window really houses a lot of good information, and we'll talk about it more as we get through it. You can turn on rules and grids. You can do all kinds of cool stuff. Okay. This allows you to turn on a grid. This allows you to add rulers. The grid is nice if you're trying to be precise with stuff. Anyways, things will snap to the grid too, which is nice. We'll talk about it as we get into it. But let's jump into Illustrator a little bit more. I want you to understand that Illustrator uses paths and points to create objects, right? So a lot different than just using a brush like you would inside of Photoshop. The pen tool is something you're gonna have to get used to because it takes a little bit to get used to it. When you click with the pen tool, you can either click points or you can click, and before you click and let go of the next point, you can pull to create your next sort of curve. Okay. And then you can click and pull and create these curves, right? And then you can click another point and close off the object, right? So you can create really unique and interesting shapes that way. So click and drag allows you to curve things. Clicking on the last point allows you to go back to a straight path. So you can create, some unique and cool shapes in this way. Right? So however you end up doing that, we can create all these different unique shapes. That's the pen tool. So you're going to have to run around and play with it for a minute. Click around, kind of get used to how it works. Click on your last point to stop or turn. Like this, when you click and drag, it will try to continue your curve for you the best it can, right? If you don't want it to do that, just click on the last point you drew, and then you can, come back around and create your shape. But Illustrator is designed to use these shapes to create more shapes, right? So You have your pen tool. You also have the curve tool, which is the same as the pen tool. It just creates curves a lot easier. It's the sister tool to the pen tool. It just creates cleaner curves. So if you're really trying to get some nice curves built in, use the curve brush or the curve tool. Okay, the curvature tool. And then you've got the shape tool. The shape tool is, or the shape tools. The shape tools are going to be some of the most powerful tools that you have available to you inside of Photoshop, and or not Photoshop, Illustrator. And I'm going to show you why with the next couple tools that we have. And we're not going to break into too many other tools outside of these ones today because they are so important and so powerful. The shape tool, if you click and hold on the shape tool, you have the rectangle, the ellipse, the polygon, the star, and line segments. Okay. Now the rectangle is rad because you can click and draw and drag any rectangle you want. If you hold shift, it creates a perfect square when you do that. Okay. Now this is not the end all be all. That's the crazy thing with Illustrator, is this is just a starting point for you, right? I can create this square, but this thing can become so many different objects so quickly. Like I can change this and manipulate this in ways that you would not think about because of the two different modes of selection that we have inside of Illustrator. You'll notice on the left-hand side, you have a black arrow. This is called your selection tool. Now below that, you have your white arrow, which is your direct select tool. Okay. Now direct select is what makes Illustrator Illustrator. Okay. I told you that objects are built out of paths and points in Illustrator. Your direct selection allows you to manipulate those paths and points, right? We drew a square. That square does not have to remain a square, right? Because I have the ability to change that path, that point, right? And manipulate this object in a way that I need to create the shape that I need, right? So I can do so many different things so quickly with that path tool, right? I'm clicking on one point and I'm moving that point, or I'm clicking on multiple points and moving multiple paths.
In Adobe Photoshop, create anything you can imagine just by typing it.
About ready to stop the music altogether so I quit getting ads. Or go to Spotify. Maybe we'll go to Spotify. Let's do that. I just don't want to get ads anymore. Cool. Okay. Sweet. I don't know if you guys can even hear the music. I don't think you can. That's okay. Let's see. There it is. Now you can hear it. Okay, so that's good at least. Maybe you weren't hearing all those ads too. That was making me annoyed, but I guess you guys weren't hearing it, so that's fine. Anyways, we'll jump back in here. So, we talked about paths and points. Now, the two different selection tools can get a little confusing. So, I often refer to these as main select and direct select. So main select is the one that you can click on an object, change its size, right? I can change its size. I can click on these different points. What I can't do is click on individual paths and move and change them. Now I can click on these anchor points and change an object this way. And oftentimes it does give me the ability to change these curvature points, right? So that I can create some different shapes. Okay. But that's main select in a nutshell. It doesn't do anything outside of this. Now, direct select allows me to actually click on paths, delete paths, change paths, right? Do a lot more with this, right? Click on individual points, change their rotation, change their pitch, change their all different types of things to create crazy and unique shapes, right? So I have these two different versions of selection in order to have more manipulation of my objects, right? And we'll talk, you'll see kind of how they work and how I use them as I start designing today, right? And you'll just see how they can be effective. So those tools to you are probably the most important for today. Now, the most powerful tool in the entire program is the next one I'm going to show you, okay? So we talked about shapes, right? We can use these shapes for a number of different things. These shapes are great. They have so much flexibility to them, but the thing that makes them so powerful and so fun and so interesting to use is the next thing that I want to show you here, right? So I have all these shapes, right? But let's say I'm really trying to create a unique shape. Maybe I need to make a little frog face, right? Now I could do something like this and go through here and do something kind of similar, you know, and I've done this here, and now I need, you know, some noses or something, right? Now I have all these shapes, but all of these are kind of one shape now, and I don't really need this to be so complicated and have all these different shapes just to make this object, right? So what's cool here is I have my shape builder tool that allows me to turn this into one shape, right? Now I clicked and dragged, and now this shape here is that frog face, right? It never was what it was before, right? Those, all three of those little ellipses, right? That shape builder tool allows me to click and drag with my main select all of these shapes, click shape builder, and decide what I need out of this. Maybe I want something like this, right? Maybe that's the shape I needed. You know, maybe I'm building a cloud and I need to build, you know, a cute little cloud, right? But I need, you know, I can't have my cloud be 3 ovals and another oval, right? I need it to actually be a cloud shape. I quickly scribble over these, combine all these, and now look at this. I have my shape, right? That's what makes Illustrator powerful, okay? Is the ability to combine shapes into even more intricate shapes. So we'll go through even more here as we're working. The properties pane has some more things that are important that I think are worth looking at and using. You know, being able to click on a point and changing its fill and opacity we'll talk about here, right? But it will make more sense as we start designing. So I'm going to build my own Jolly Roger for myself here and kind of demo this for you, okay? So I'm going to start with the shapes. I always start with shapes because it's so easy to do this and create the shapes that I want, right? So I built myself a circle, right? I'm going to start building my little Jolly Roger, okay? So I'm holding shift and clicking and dragging to create this perfect circle. Now, this is where some other tools get kind of handy here, right? This is off center. I want this thing to live in the center of my square here, right? So I do have this tab called Align, right? And in the Align tab, I am able to click and align my object to the very center. Now, I don't need it to be in the center in the Y-axis. I just want it in the center in the X, right? So I centered it like there, right? If it's off kilter and way out here, I can always get myself reorganized with this Align pane, right? So I just click this and it reorganizes it for me. I can move this around and always know that if I just click this, it's going to center it for me, okay? Now this object has some properties, right? We have properties because we have this object created now. So this object has an appearance right now. Currently it's being filled with white. We could fill this with a number of colors. Right now, I actually don't want it to be filled. I just want to be drawing lines right now. So I'm going to say, okay, no fill, right? And I'm going to go to the stroke, which is underneath it, and I'm going to bump this up to be a little thicker. So now we're just kind of drawing with lines right now, which is what I wanted. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do here is create the bottom half of my Jolly Roger. So, you know, we'll start kind of creating this here. Now, my skull may not look, I don't want it to look perfectly like Luffy's, you know, so I'm going to kind of create my own unique one here, but I'm going to get a base shape to kind of work with. So I'm going to do a rectangle, right? And then I'm going to align this in the center just because I can, right? And then I'm going to smooth this out just a little bit to create, you know, something that resembles, you know, a skeleton's jaw a little bit more. Maybe I need to make this a little bigger. So I'm in my main select and I'm just scaling this up a little bit. I clicked on these to round it off, right? Now I'm going to center this again. Just make sure I'm getting what I need, right? This might be a little too wide, so maybe we'll back this back in and recenter it, okay? So from here, now I can do what I was trying to do before, which is, okay, let's take these and I'm going to combine these like this, right? Now I have the top half of my skull, right? And I have the bottom part of my jaw. I need to build in my teeth, right? But that's okay. So I can do that by taking this same shape and hitting Control C and Control V. And I can build my teeth in somewhere in here like this, right? Maybe I need to expand this, or maybe I take this and just kind of move, you know, this down to a point, kind of decide where that teeth on the skull is going to land, right? Somewhere in here. Or, you know, there's a couple different ways you could do it, right? You could take the top sphere and move the top sphere down, right? Which works just as good too. I can align this and scoot this down, because remember, we have that shape builder tool available to us. Maybe I need to kind of flatten this out, but I want it to live something like this, okay? And then I can take this shape and go like this. I can just cut that shape about by clicking on it, right? And now I have this thing that's been cut out. I have this shape now that's my teeth, and I have this shape that's living as the bottom part of my jaw, right? Pretty quickly, I've just used the shape builder to build the startings of my skull here, right? So, and then I can come in with my pen tool and kind of put my smile in here as I want, right? Maybe I want one to live directly in the middle, so I take this and I align it to the center. Now, mirroring inside of Illustrator is a little tricky, but you can use the grid, right, to line things up. So I know that one's kind of off by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And sometimes it will help you snap, like it will tell you where it aligns on the other side, but you can always use the grid to align things. And I'll show you another kind of trick that we can do after the fact to make this work even easier. Because there's no real good mirror function inside of the software. So the next way you can do that is going like this, right? You could group all those together, but I think for right now this is fine. I'll show you a way that makes it easy to mirror an object. What we do is combine everything and then just cut it in half and mirror, and I'll show you. But there's no way to really actively mirror something inside of here, but it's fine. So I just want to make sure this is all centered still. So I'm going to click on all of this. Just kind of make sure it's all centered. Okay, cool. So I've started to build my teeth here. And I need to build this same line again. through here. So I'm going to take my pen tool. I'm going to click in the middle of this. I'm going to click over here. And then I'm going to drag and just build my sort of center line through there till I find it where I want it, and I can let go. And I can click off of that. And I built my sort of skull teeth there, right? Now, I do like how some of these other Jolly Rogers have different looking skulls. I like this. I kind of want mine to be a little different, but I like kind of what's happening here. So I'm going to change the shape of my skull a little bit here because I like the idea of this. And this is where I'm going to show you kind of how to mirror something, right? So I'm going to go like this and kind of create a different shape to my skull, right? So with that being said, now I need to take this shape builder and cut this out here. Oops. So that I can take this and delete this. And then I'm going to have a little bit of a unique challenge here with this in order to join these paths and make this all kind of line up properly. But it should be okay. So I have this now, right? Now, if I wanted this to perfectly be aligned, I created that different shape to my skull, right? So I'm going to align this in the middle. I'm going to take a square and draw a square over half of that, right? And I'm going to use my shape builder tool to delete half of my object. So I just built the shapes together. Now I can delete this square and I have half here, right? Now I can control C this with my keyboard and control V, and I have two halves now, right? Now, I can go up to the top and under object transform, I can hit the button called reflect here, and it allows me to flip that object over an axis. So if I do it in the vertical, it will flip it over for me. Now I can come back here and align those back in the center, and I can click and drag over the top, go back to my shape builder and shape build these back together, right? So essentially I have mirrored that now. Okay. Little bit of a tricky process to get there, but it does work in the long run. And I do have to now account for this with this piece of my design and just kind of figure out how I'm going to align those, right? And it could mean, you know, now that I kind of did that after the fact, it could mean a couple different things. Maybe I rethink about how this sits here, right? With my main select. Maybe I build a different bottom half of my jaw, right? Maybe I do that with, you know, a cube again. And I redo this really quickly because it's not too hard to do. I can take this, you know, keep my square and kind of pull this back in, decide how I want that to look. And I can shape build that, right? Now I'm always going to have this little flare out here, and I think there's a way to fix this. I just need to remember how. I think I can join these paths too, if I remember right. So with my main select or my direct select, I can click on these and go object, join, or path, and then join. Maybe not. The other thing to do is shape build them together, which is not a horrible idea if we select them both. They just don't want to join, which is fine. I have some leftover bits here of another part of this, which is interesting. Which might be why they didn't want to join. So if I click over both of these points with shift, I can kind of adjust this how I want. I also kind of want this to be smaller here. So maybe that point changes a little bit. There's a couple different ways we could do this. Maybe we try it with a sphere too. I don't love the sphere. Yeah, no. Let's go back to the rectangle. We'll make this work for us. Okay. We'll pull this up. I like this. I'm going to do something else here a little bit and go into my effects. Under warp. I can do something. This is getting a little bit crazier here, but you can do an arc lower and this will start to like affect this shape. Now, I don't know if that's exactly how I want to do that. Yeah, that is how I want to do that. Okay, then we can do object expand appearance, which will just finalize that effect we put on there. And I can come back with my main select and kind of tweak this a little bit more. And I can come back with these and adjust it more too. It just depends on how you want to do that. You can also get in there and delete some of these anchor points if you feel like it's kind of destroying your design. See, that's what I wanted right there. That's what I was going for the whole time. Okay. So now I can click this with my main select and kind of drag this back up. And then I'm going to use my shape builder again. Go back to shape builder. Hopefully I can shape build this out of here. I can just click these and delete them, which might leave some weird leftovers behind, which is fine. We'll just get rid of them. We can group this under object group, and then we can recenter it back in the screen. So this is fine for right now. I know I have to deal with these little pointy pieces here. I think I can do something to get rid of them, but we'll figure it out in a second. So I kind of have the shape of my skull built. I'm going to build some eyes now. I'm going to do it with the shape builder tool. Because I want a specific shape here. Now, I don't think that's quite, yeah. Let's try something else. So we can do shape builder 2 in this way, right? If I want a specific shape, now I can take my, yeah, There we go. That's kind of what I wanted. So if we go here, can build those together, take this and delete this one. So now I've got this sort of shape, but I want them more like this. Perfect. Okay. I'm kind of building out the shape of my eyes here. I just need to object reflect this. So transform and then reflect over the vertical, and then I can line this back up. So that's where it's telling me is the intersect. I don't think it is. So what I'm going to do the trick with eyes is you can try to line them up the best you can right here. Like the intersect is there between the two. And then you can group them together. So if I go object group, then we can just align them in the center, right? So now I know they should be relatively centered on that grid. Doesn't look like they are though. So let's try one more time. So I'm going to put them both on this point here. I'm going to move it out. 1, 2, 3. Go 1, 2, 3. Make sure those are aligned. Then we group them. The other way you can kind of check too is by doing this. So if I put them both in the middle, now I know for sure. Now I can go object group and then put them in the center, and then I can move them up wherever. Now I want them a little lower, kind of in here. But I have something like this, okay? And then I'm going to do something fun for the nose, because each one of these Jolly Rogers have this kind of nose on them. So we'll center that. We're centered in the space, which is good. I'm going to give these a fill now. These all need to be filled black. That's just kind of what they do on these Jolly Rogers, okay? Then I'm going to start kind of making this my own, right? Things that I think represent me. Now, I do want to do a smile. I'm a happy dude. I smile a lot. I've got a beard. I always am wearing a hat of some sort. Usually when I'm on stream, I'm like this, but typically in my normal day life, I'm walking around like this, right? So I'm going to build myself a backwards hat. And we're going to do that with a sphere. Now, the other thing that I'm thinking of too is doing it with a curve the other way. Now, we could do something like this, which I think is going to end up looking better. So we'll go here. We'll take the fill off of this. We'll just draw with lines. So it looks something like that. Then I'm going to do the same line and go down just a little bit, because I want to build the strap for the hat. So maybe I take this down a little bit. And the strap only lives in a certain spot, but then I'm going to take this here and I'm going to build, we'll do it with a rectangle actually. I'm going to build the kind of middle part of the hat there. So we'll center that and we'll do this. Okay. Then I'm going to use Shape Builder, right? So if I grab all of this, I can go here. I combine those. I can combine that. I can get rid of this. Oh, I need to do it again one more time. So I need to combine, oops, this and this. Come on. Actually can get rid of that. Nope, I can't. I need to shape build like this, actually. So we'll go there. Then I can delete this one. And I can delete this. Should be able to delete. Or if I need to, I can go here. And I can shape build this back together. So now I should have my hat kind of built in there, right? Something like this. Which is cool. And then I'm going to put my little kind of top of your hat in there. And I might shape build that together. Make sure that's centered. And we'll shape build this. So now I've got my hat kind of built in there, right? And then this, I want to put those kind of little beads for my circle. Now I'm going to bump the stroke down a little bit on this just so that they fit in here. But I want to make this kind of accurate, right? So we'll do one here, here, here. And we can put the little curve line for the piece that goes over the top. Looks like a proper hat now. Okay. So that's the start there for me. I do need to build some of my other stuff in here. Okay. I know that I have, some other traits too that I kind of want to lean into. I've got some more branding stuff that I think I could hit, but I'm going to do some things that I enjoy too and kind of bake this in. I also kind of want more of the hat to show here. So in the back, so I'm going to try to shape build this the best I can and create the kind of the back bill of the hat too. So that it's kind of like behind. And maybe it's better with a rectangle. And it could just come off to one side, kind of. If we wanted to get kind of fun with it. Kind of just depends on how I want to show that, I guess. The other way that I'm thinking is like this kind of, like, which I don't hate. Or I was thinking like, it comes off on the other side too, but nah. I like the kind of on one side. I like that look. So I just used the paintbrush to do that little line there. And I think that ties in pretty good. We can always click this line here. Click this anchor and just pull that in so that it snaps. I'm also going to fill this hat, I think, if I can. just because it always is a black hat for me. So something like that. And then let's do maybe the rest of the smile too. So I can shape build this piece here. Get rid of this. Now I've got the teeth kind of getting built in, sort of like we did before. We'll draw my straight line. Take it here. We'll just center it and move it down. And I Control C and Control V these. I can kind of space them out where I want. Okay, that's feeling pretty good. So there's a couple other things that I could think of to do here. I like this sort of thing that's happening. Now, you know, I could always be kind of fun and do like a beard on it, which maybe I would. You know, other people have if you look at the One Piece Rogers, like I could do something like this and kind of make it fun. And maybe do like a maybe I'll do something like that. That's kind of fun. We'll reflect this. So now I've kind of got my facial hair in there. You know, the next thing to look at for me is making this, you know, a Jolly Roger, right? So I got a skull. I need to figure out what the crossbones are. And for me, a big part of my life has always been skateboarding. And so I feel like I want to do a little skateboard behind his head. So I'm going to do a little skateboard, I think. I've always been a skateboarder my entire life. I can't give it up. I love it too much. So we'll build a little skateboard. Now my thought is to do something like this to get the curve together with that. Okay, so I can go like this. So I built the curve there. And I can click here. I can pull these down and kind of round these out a little bit. So I've done that side, right? Now I'm going to use my same trick again. I'm going to take my rectangle, take half of this, do my shape builder, go like this. And I'm going to build the truck and everything first before I do anything else. So we'll build the truck on here. So we'll go here. So trucks always kind of look something like this. You've got your kind of shape like this. So I was just doing my little riser pad here. And we'll do our truck. Look something like this. Can sit here. And then usually the wheel kind of blocks out the rest of this. Maybe a little bit of it shows, like you've got the bushing. It sits kind of right here. This is usually more of an angle. But our wheel is going to cover a big chunk of this. So we'll go like this here. Now I need to maybe build the wheel separately. So we'll go in the center here. Then we'll build our bolt. So skateboard nuts are usually 6-sided. So we'll go here. We'll create this and say 6-sided. And then this will kind of sit there. And then there's one more little circle that sits inside of there. That will be a lower point value. And that will get grouped, object group. Do it like this. Now, with with that being said, I could probably just shape build this. This is also kind of thick, so we're going to go like this. So I'm actually going to take this whole thing and use itself to kind of chop it in half. That's fine. Let's maybe not make that so aggressive. So you can see a lot of this really is just building those shapes out of things, right? Okay, so now we can shape build this like that. Okay, cool. Take that, delete that. Then we'll take this whole thing and group it. And we'll Control C it and Control V it, mirror it. And we can put together our skateboard. So now that's there. We can take this and shape build that whole thing together. Okay, so now there's our skateboard. Can kind of beef this up. I can also turn up my line weights on this bad boy. And maybe put this behind his head or put it underneath like this, you know, depending on how I want to do that. Maybe I do it like this, or I do it under his head, maybe like this, right? I can always bump the line weights up on it. Make sure I didn't rotate it all funny here. Okay, so I've got this, right? Then I can start adding more things, you know, like what else do I have that could be a part of this Jolly Roger? You know, I love art, so maybe I do a pencil behind his head, you know, maybe I do a couple other things back there, you know, but this is a great start and I could keep rolling with this, right? You know, if you look at all these different things that we have here, you can also do things in color too. I don't care either way. But we've got a good start here, right? We can see, you know, they've got some cool effects and things happening. Some of these other ones have some cool designs and shapes. I'm not a swordsman, right? So I'm not doing swords, but we've kind of taken some inspiration here. You know, I could build a double X out of these, you know, skateboards somehow. And do something cool with this. Cross them or something, right? And somehow make that part of it, or, you know, it all just depends on how I want to use that. Maybe I put something on here on the skateboard, maybe a cup full of pencils, and then on the other side, you know, I've got, you know, something else that defines me, right? But this is kind of what I'm talking about. Make a personification of yourself in these Jolly Rogers, right? So we've been going for almost 2 hours, so I am going to call it here. We could demo more, but this is pretty good. It's the same process, right? We're just adding more, using that shape builder, building more pieces, adding more and more to it as we go, right? So if you have any questions, I'll hang out here for a second. If not, then we'll let you go for the night. Okay, I guess it's the night for me, the rest of the day for you guys. Okay. And this assignment is going to go, I think, 2 weeks. So you have a good amount of time to really dial these in and make them look good. Let's see. I can't remember if it's 2 weeks or you may only have a week. Let me double check. No, you have 2 weeks to work on these. So you can really dial these in. Okay. Really make things look nice. I'll have another assignment for you too, where you'll do another kind of simple caricature of yourself. Okay. Kind of like the one I did earlier. I'm going to save this. Oh, attendance word for today. Let's go skateboard. Skateboard is your word for today. Yes, there is attendance today. Skateboard. Skateboard is your word for today. Okay. So I'll have, you know, I'll probably have another assignment like this for you where you'll create a simple caricature of yourself too, but we'll get into that. Okay. That might be next week. So we'll spend 2 weeks in Illustrator. Okay. We can get into this too. So for now, work on those Jolly Rogers. Okay. Again, skateboard is your word for this week. Okay. Oh, no attendance slot in Canvas for today. Let me double check. So April 11th. Nothing for April 3rd, huh? Okay. Let's do this. Oh yeah, don't do week. Yeah, don't do the 11th. Yeah, don't that. Yeah, that will be next week's. So I'll make one for today. Call this week 7. Make it due today. Okay. Okay, that should be there now. Put it in for week 7. I just published the assignment. You should see it there now. So. Week 6. I'll just delete week 6. So put it in week 7 for today. Okay? Cool. Yeah, that should be there now. So put it in the week 7 slot if you can see that. Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you. If you have questions on your stuff over the next coming week, please let me know. Okay. Hit me up in the Discord. I'm always happy to help over Discord or do a screen share or anything if you need it. Okay. Please let me know. Enjoy the rest of your day. Can't resubmit week 9's code. I will allow for resubmissions on that. Let me do this. Okay, I fixed that, so you should be able to. Week 7 says it's overdue. Oh my gosh, it's because of the time zone stuff. Let me fix it for you guys. Can you answer? Since Design 4 was due over the break, is that still the official due date? If so, is there a point deduction? Assignment 4 was due over the break. No, I won't deduct any points. Please turn it in by this. Please turn it in by the end of this week, so tomorrow, if you can. Yeah, get that one turned in by tomorrow. So you've had, it was due over the break, but you still had a couple days to work on it. So actually, let's say if you have it in before next class, as long as it's turned in before next class, I won't take any points away. Okay. But yeah, let me fix that week 7 is saying it's overdue. I think it's just because it's the time zone stuff. Maybe that fixed it. Hopefully that fixed it. Okay. Let me know if that fixed it. It might be at a weird time now. I don't know. We'll see. Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate that you all showed up for class today. We'll start at a better time next week, but I will see you all next class. Okay. Please let me know if you need anything from me. Thanks, everybody. See ya.